This is Pusha Wheats Catan coming at you with our first ever 4-player game analysis, Swerve on them. You'll see what that means in a minute here, but first let's check out this board. And what I notice right away is that there is a clear first position for best placement, which is that 5, 10, 9 or wheat. Gives you the best potential for city materials, and there are 3 clear places where you can get strong sheep, which is a development card builder's dream. But unfortunately, I am placing 3rd on this board, which means I don't think I'll be able to get this spot. And assuming that I don't, after the first placement, I think there's 2 good spots left, including the 6, 5, 12 pointed down towards the 9 wheat and the 6, 9, 3 with the only good brick on the board. I will have to see which spots my opponents take and then form my strategy based on their choice. First placement does go on that 5, 10, 9 as expected. Gives my opponents the best potential for city and development cards and will truly make this round a challenge. Second placement is from Orange and it's on the 6, 4, 3 pointed towards the 8, 4 and or port. This was a real surprise and I think a mistake from Orange. This also puts me in an interesting spot because the 6, 5, 12 with the 9 wheat is open unexpectedly. But when I look at this board, I realize these 2 opponents are both setting themselves up for a development card game, and there is really only one good brick and wood spot connected in the upper right corner. While I almost always would want to make sure that I have ore available to me and stronger wheat by pointing towards that 9, the port that I would receive is the brick port, and with only a 12 brick and knowing that the 4th player would pick the 6, 9, 3 in one of their 2 picks, I know that it is more important to secure the brick and wood before the other resources. This is setting me up for road when my opponents will all be going for development cards. So with that in mind, I take the gamble and I do place on the 6, 9, 3 with the strong brick and wood. The 4th player then places on the 6, 5, 11 and the 5, 10, 2, which closes out the strongest ore spot and the strongest remaining wheat spot. But for my strategy, this is the dream scenario. All players have strong ore wheat sheep and will be competing for development cards, and I see that I can get all resources and have access to the sheep port with an 8 sheet spot when I place on the 4, 8, 10. I make the placement and Orange places on the last remaining ore spot with the 11. Black also needs strong sheep to complete their strategy and places on the 8, 4 with the ore port and the strongest ore. Black has a really strong setup here with the strongest ore wheat sheep and the ore port, but by placing there and Orange being punished for their mistake in their first placement by being forced to place where they did for their second, they have all cannibalized their side of the board in terms of remaining placements and have left me with strong road building materials and a free and clear right side of the board. This is the dream alternate strategy with road when everyone is competing for development cards. But we'll have to see how this plays out. And kicking things off in the game, my first priority is to build towards the sheep port. It's close between trying to build towards the 10 ore with the 3 to 1 port, but doubling my brick supply with the only brick on the board and having the sheep port is more valuable in my opinion. Also, with Black not having any road building materials and nobody having access to brick except for me, I'm less worried about losing the race to that port even if it's the second action I take. So my first road will be towards the sheep port. But immediately Black sees what my strategy is and solo blocks my brick to start the game. Not ideal, and a solo block when the knight could slow down both myself and Orange is an aggressive play. But I think Black is a strong player who recognizes that I need to be slowed down for anybody to catch up. I do get the materials for a development card and I'm close to being over 7 cards, so I do buy a development card and get what I'm looking for, a knight, but luckily I am helped out by a 7, which gets the knight off my brick, which at this stage in the game is actually more valuable to me than the ore. Black also chooses to build their first road towards the 4-11, which tells me that my race to the 3 to 1 port on the 10 is going to be even less competitive, because now we know that Black needs to settle before building another road settle at the port. So even though I haven't placed my first road yet, my strategy decision is confirmed, and I just need the resources to come my way to execute my strategy. Green also helps out by placing the knight on black and orange's wheat, knowing that they need to slow those two down in order to be competitive with development cards. This is exactly what I want to see, with knights already being purchased and fighting amongst themselves to get largest army. The only player that does seem to be focused on me is black. In my next turn, I trade for ore and then place my settlement. This is done in that order because players are much less likely to trade with you after they see you make a play. And I make this trade because I will be slower to produce a city than the other players on my own. This may seem like it's insignificant, but it's truly essential. With a road strategy, you lose the edge on building your first city, and the further your strategy develops, the less likely other players are to trade with you down the road to prevent you from building that city and being able to progress. These small moves early in the games are what sets apart and allows you to win in the later stages. I've made as much progress as I can in that one turn, and now I focus to ensuring that I win the race to the 3-1 port. Black does get their city first, and with their ports, this is truly a threat. On the other hand, even though I feel good about my position, others will always see the player with the first city as someone who needs to be slowed down, and I do look relatively weak compared to black now. This is not a bad position to be in. Green also gets a city, and looking at the board now, orange will be blocking the green and black 5 ore, and black will be blocking the 6 sheep to slow down orange and green from getting sheep to buy their development cards, and green will be blocking the 4 wheat to slow both orange and black down from buying development cards. So the cannibalization effect is strengthened with their progress, and I look like I'm in last place with just 1 settlement and 1 road. This is exactly how I want things to appear as I'm getting close to building my first city on the 4, 8, 10, so that my ore building materials are strengthened and my sheep board is strengthened. I get exactly the roll I need with an 8 on my turn, and this is a great feeling. Instead of buying development cards, which I know will be wasted as others outpace me, I choose to use my sheep port to trade in for the last needed ore and build my first city. Green does choose to block us again, but my priority is still to build roads and settle on the 3-1 port. Black does play the knight again, and unfortunately still sees the threat of my progress brewing and solo blocks me on that 6. None of the other players have an incentive to take the knight off of me, so I will need a 7 to get out of this situation. But Green's desire to outpace black with knights forces them to play an aggressive knight to both block black and orange and also free me up. I understand why you would want to get ahead given that the knight's pacing is so important in this competitive development card board, but once again this is playing right into my strategy and giving me the free unblock. I then get the dream roll with a 6 so that I have the road settle in hand, just hoping that there isn't a 7 which would cause me to lose half of my hand. That 7 doesn't come though, and I am able to place on the port. The rest of the players, even black, now are all fighting for army, and black needs to slow down green to get enough knights to come back and win. This leaves me completely free and open to get longest road and to get closer to my end game. On top of that, I get enough materials to build a second city on my original 693 placement, giving me even more road building materials. So at this point, I am seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Now I really do just need to focus on actually locking down longest road. This is another trap that you can fall into where you believe that you are all set because you have the strongest materials. But if you look at the board right now, orange does have longest road in hand, and they are easily able to continue on to extend that. So that would really slow down my game. I do need to make sure that I'm mindful for this and make sure that I don't get too comfortable with the fact that I will have road by the end of this game. But I do continue to get the right resources, and I'm able to place 2 roads and a settlement on the 8-3. That port is still strong, and I am now definitely the threat. I am going to be looking to continue to build out where I can, and I get a second city there. So now I have 8 points. I am really just 2 roads away from this being done. I actually, at this point, had forgotten that Orange had taken road, and I went to write GG's in the chat, but found out that I only had the 5 roads and not the 6 that I needed. But looking here, I do now have that in hand, and this really is good game. This is a win, and this is my first 4-player W on this channel that I wanted to post. Ended up being a clean one, and you could see I really ended up having more resources than everybody else with my cities, and this alternate strategy, this swerve, all of it worked out exactly like I wanted to. Thank you all for watching. Plenty more 4-player Catan to come here, and looking forward to catching you all in the next one.